it's a good time to be a sports fan in Dallas.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Hey, look down there. You can call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a very, very long time. But this year I've been 6 years here at the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm now doing Locked On A's and Locked On MLB at the same time. You will notice if you're watching on video that I'm not alone, because giggling and moving his eyebrows up and down. Why? Look who it is. It is Mr. Brice Paterik of Locked On Rangers. How you doing, buddy?
You mean Locked On World Series champion?
My bad.
I'm doing great. It is a great time to be a Dallas sports fan.
It is indeed. Well, let's get business done first here. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And you can follow me. I'm your pal Sully. Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Where do people follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter or really just Twitter at Brice Paterik or at Locked On Rangers, not at Locked On New York Rangers. That's the other one. They're doing well as well.
Yeah, well, not as well as your teams have been doing after last night's loss to the Florida Panthers. And by the way, just so you know, just get some more business done here. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. If you don't know what a winning bet is, that's when you bet on a team that plays in Dallas. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And oh, by the way, if you listen to us every single day, make sure you're putting that hashtag Everyday Sully. Lets us know who's listening every day. And one final thing, in the trivia question the other day, where we were talking about the inclusion of the Negro League stats with Major League stats, I brought up the year that baseball was integrated in 1947. The team that won the Negro League World Series had the father of a future All-Star and World Series hero. And a couple of you got it correctly. Roger Molina says that pitcher was Luis E. Tiant, whose son, Luis C. Tiant, played for several teams, including the Red Sox, where he was a World Series hero. Some people, I got a little brushback from a couple of people saying, like, you can't combine those. You can't combine different league records. And I pointed out, well, the American League and National League were two different leagues. The Federal League was a different league. We combined those records. The American Association was a different league. And the players who came in as integration suddenly became the greatest players of all time. So it's easy to extrapolate that some of the greatest players from the earlier days probably would have done okay. This winter, and if you find yourself saying, "Hey, I don't want Josh Gibson in the record books," take a long look in the mirror and ask yourself what your priorities in life are. Just do that for me. I know what Brice Paterik's priorities in life is, and that is to root for every single team in Dallas. Brice, buddy, I mean, we're not going to turn this into NBA talk. This is Locked On MLB, and we are going to focus a lot on the Texas Rangers today. But there is a real possibility that in about a week and a half, of the four major Dallas-based teams, the team with the second longest playoff drought could be the Texas Rangers, and who haven't won a World Series in months. You know, that could happen. You could have the Mavericks, if they beat the Celtics, because we know that's set. The Dallas Stars will have to get past the Oilers and then probably face Florida as we get the natural hockey rivalry of Dallas and Miami. Mm-hmm. And you have the defending champion Texas Rangers. Are you ever unhappy anymore?
Yeah, when I watch the 2024 Texas Rangers. No,
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
it's
We'll,
hard.
we'll get to them in a second. We'll get to them in a second here.
It's hard to be too upset. I mean, I am about the most Dallas boy you will ever meet. I am literally seventh generation Dallas. There are streets downtown literally named after my ancestors. Like my Dallas roots go about as far as anyone in the history of Dallas. So it's and as a obviously a big sports person, like it's been literally like riding highs. No matter how rough this season has been, which it like it sounds definitely very dramatic of like, oh my gosh, the Rangers are 3 games below 500 or excuse me, now 2 games below 500. Everything's off. Like it's really like it's really dramatic, but like it's hard to be too upset with anything Dallas sports outside of the Cowboys, which
I know. Ironically, the Cowboys are the one that are the longest drought right now.
the problem child. Well, Patrick Mahomes is my natural born son, and so basically the Chiefs, who initially were in Dallas. If you want to think of them as
Oh,
the
that's
Dallas
you're.
NFL, then you just
We're
then I
we're
get
reaching.
really annoying.
We're reaching here. Hey, Brice, in case you're feeling, look over your right shoulder at your wall.
Oh my gosh.
The Rangers are the yeah. And what does it say?
It says Texas Rangers 2023 World Series champs. It's cutting off here. There's also a plaque over here
Yeah.
that says the same thing.
Yeah. So I remember the first time I saw my team win the World Series, and that whole and by the way, my children were born months afterwards, so I had to say, okay, this is the greatest moment of my life. But for a couple of months, I could. Everyone knew the real answer. Yeah, the Texas Rangers are. Well, let's try to be positive right now. There are 5 teams in the American League West, and only one has a positive run differential, and that's the Texas Rangers, who are +1. That is,
that they don't ask how much, they ask how.
and I'll tell you,
Nope, there was some better way to say that maybe someone smarter would have articulated, but not me.
This episode is being dropped on the 31st of May. Tomorrow is June. And if I had told you that we'll get to June 1 and the Rangers would be a sub 500 team, you probably would think, oh, God, last year was this, that, and the other thing.
No, I would ask how far behind they are in the wild card in the division. That was the whole thing. The entire first half, I knew it was going to be rough because you have Max Scherzer, Jacob deGrom, and Tyler Mahle on the shelf until June, July, and August, respectively. Theoretically, that was the thought going in. So it's like, all right, it's going to be rough early on. But
well, yeah, but if I had also told you that the Houston Astros would be closer to the A's than first place in the standings, that might be heartening.
No, I think I would have wept tears of joy if you had told me that. Because when I look at the standings and the Astros are well below 500, it brings me pure joy as a strong hater.
Well, the other thing is, and we'll get in section 2, we're going to go in a little bit of a deep dive here. But here's something you alluded to something. Okay, the Rangers have gotten off to a clunky start. Injuries have been a big part of it. There's been ineffectiveness from other people as well. But despite everything that's gone wrong, they are the worst case scenario. I mean, they're going into the last day of May, 2 games out in the loss column of first place. They're on a 3-game winning streak. And the team that they're chasing is a very weird Seattle Mariners team. A team that I think is a good team, and I think under normal circumstances would be a solid wild card contender. But now they're in first place in the West because, according to the latest collective bargaining agreement, someone has to be. They can't just have second place teams. Someone has to be on top. And the Mariners, who lost again today to the underachieving Houston team.
Hold on, say that part again. Say that last part again.
That underachieving Houston team.
Okay, thank you.
The Rangers are within striking distance of first place heading into June, which in so many ways, if we've learned anything from the playoffs of the last year or so, It's punch your ticket and take your chance. And those wonderful words are on the sports ticker, which is coming up next, the Miami Marlins, who have been playing better recently. To be fair, the Marlins have been playing a little better recently, but the Rangers are better than they are. So it's there's hope.
There's hope. And last week was rough. It was really rough.
Yeah.
And they played two very good teams. Like I talked about this with Connor Thomas last week on our crossover, because there's a lot of data like, oh, well, the Phillies haven't played anybody good. And I was like, there's that whole thing about, oh, they've only, played like 2 series against teams with, above 500 records. And I was like,
Right.
well, the Rangers were 500 heading into that series. And until that game 1 loss, which I saw coming a mile away because the Rangers are bad against lefties and, the Phillies are a really good team. It was the first time the Rangers were below 500 in the regular season under Brice Paterik. Like the first time. They had gotten close. I think at that point they were 8-0 when they had gotten to 500 this year, because there have been a lot of times they were right there and they just pulled above it. But it was a rough series. You got swept by a really good Phillies team. You lost 2 out of 3 to the Twins, who are a really good team. And then you took 2 out of 2 against the Diamondbacks. You took that final game of the series against the Twins. You're riding a 3-game winning streak. You've got 2 off days this week. And not to add to the injury, kerfuffle, but Marcus Semien took a day off, agreed to a day off on Wednesday, which he's only had 1 off day his entire Rangers tenure. And that was when the Rangers forced him to sit down after a horrible first month and a half of his tenure here, coming off of that weird offseason with the lockout where he was like, negotiating the CBA and like in a new place and everything was just different. And Marcus Semien just doesn't take days off. But he had a collision with Adolis Garcia a couple weeks ago, actually maybe like 10 days ago or so. It took Adolis Garcia out of the lineup for a couple of days. He was DHing only for like 3 days after he got back in the lineup. And you thought, okay, well, neither of them came out of the game. So you thought, all right, maybe they're fine. And then like after that, for a whole week, Marcus Semien was just terrible. And it's like, okay, well, if Marcus Semien is taking a day off, and like that is a sign of the apocalypse, basically. But somehow this team, despite all the insane amount of injuries, having what feels like 117 starting pitchers on the IL, they're not out of it.
And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Hey, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. It's a great time to be a Dallas sports fan. You're putting money on the NBA Finals. You're putting money on the Stanley Cup Finals. And then you're taking your money and saying, hey, you know what? They're going to be playing the Marlins. Maybe they got a shot there too. It's winner take all time, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sports book. Hey, where is your hub for all things sports? Where do you go for the best stories and the best takes? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Easy for you to say, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is indeed your team every day. Okay, let's talk about this team for a minute. Let's talk about what's positive with this team. Who do you think is producing the best right now? And who do you think is on the verge of breaking out and making things right?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is Corey Seager, who started off the year in a way we haven't really seen him with the Rangers. He was actually suffering from coming back from an injury, which was surprising because last year he took 2 trips on the IL. He had a hamstring injury early on the season. He missed 6 weeks. He came back and was immediately phenomenal, like had not missed a beat at all. And then later on in the season, I believe the end of July, he had a thumb injury, spent a little bit of time on the IL, came back like he didn't miss a beat at all. which is not normal. But this year in January, towards the end of January, he had a sports hernia surgery because he was dealing with a sports hernia. By the way, throughout the entire playoffs, when he hit that game tying home run in game one of the World Series, he was dealing with a sports hernia. And so it was a major surgery. They were hoping that the time off during the offseason, it would just heal. It didn't. He had surgery at the end of January, missed most of spring training, came back with basically like 2 days left of spring training, and just really wasn't himself. And
Mhm.
over the first month of the season, he struggled, which is not something that often happens with Corey Seager in a Texas Rangers uniform. And then the last 3 weeks, he has just been phenomenal. He's got 8 home runs in his last 8 games. The guy is just a
Well,
machine.
you know who's well aware of his home run prowess is every Oakland A's fan, because the A's were on a roll. They got back to 500, and they're on the verge of winning that first game against Texas and get a little momentum. And
Mm-hmm.
then with a 2-0 score and Ursack pitching, and Ursack at the time was untouchable, he let up a 3-run home run to Corey Seager that sent the A's on an absolute tailspin that
Mm-hmm.
they've only kind of got themselves off of. I mean, they lost again today, a heartbreaking game, but it was, you could just point right to that Corey Seager home run
Mm-hmm.
as when things started really going south.
Well, that's also what really got Corey Seager going. Like he was starting to hit balls harder. He was starting to hit balls like hard hit balls all the time, which is that was the thing that made him so amazing last year. Is that like basically every ball he put in play was like 95 miles an hour plus. It was just crazy. Like everything he put was hard hit, and that was kind of the series. He went from like, oh, he's got a bunch of hard hit balls that are just like hit right at guys to, oh, he's getting hits, he's getting homers, he's crushing it. He's being Corey Seager, the efficiently programmed robot to destroy baseballs. And the other person who has gone right this year has been Josh Smith. He has been downright incredible. Last year, the Rangers have two guys who are basically their bench infielders, their utility infielders, who have stepped up in huge ways the last couple years. Last year, when Corey Seager was on the IL, Ezekiel Duran was downright phenomenal in that 6 week stretch. The whole first half last year, Zeke Duran was incredible and borderline all star level. This year, he hasn't been quite as good. And Josh Smith has stepped up for the other Josh, Josh Young. There are three Joshes on this Rangers roster: Josh Young, Josh Smith,
Mhm.
Josh Spores. And 2 out of 3 have been hurt for most of the year. But the one who hasn't been is Josh Smith, who is right now second on the team in baseball reference WAR. He has been elite defensively. Offensively, he made some swing changes. Doesn't hit for a whole lot of power. It's for a lot of average, works a lot of walks, gets hit by a lot of pitches, and has been probably the Rangers' second best hitter for the entirety of this year. Better, only behind Corey Seager. He's been better than Lowe,
Can
Simeon,
I ask?
Heim.
Can I
It's
ask a
crazy.
naive? Can I ask a naive question? Which again, you would think I would know this, but you'll forgive me. I don't know the Rangers quite as well as you.
Mhm.
Was he on the playoff roster last year? I
He
don't
was.
remember him playing in the world.
He
Was
didn't
he?
play,
Did
but he was on the
uh,
roster. Zeke Duran was not on the roster until Adolis Garcia went on the IL, but neither
mm.
of them really played because
Oh, he
they were
made
backups.
he appeared in he appeared in 3 games in the postseason and got 0 plate appearances. That's maybe why I don't remember him in the postseason.
Because he
Is
didn't do it.
he
But
he,
he's
he
like I said this at the beginning of the season, like those two guys who
he
the
has a
Rangers
ring.
actually the Rangers got both those guys in the Joey Gallo trade.
Mhm.
Which I love my son Joey Gallo. It seems like the Rangers ended up with the better end of that deal. But having those two guys as your, backup and second tier backup middle infielder, they also play left field. They also play a little bit of center field. They can play literally wherever. They are utility guys and they play so well. But having those two
Mhm.
guys who I think are both first division starting caliber players, those are your backups. So you have Josh Young who plays out of his mind for 4 games and gets hit in the wrist by a pitch. He's not going to be back until probably the end of June, if not early July. Hopefully, end of June. Like, and those are the guys you have to step up. That's amazing depth that this team
Yeah,
has desperately needed.
yeah. Well, and I'm a firm believer that the fact that they have clearly not played their best baseball, Clearly, if they're not getting the production they're wanting from certain players, clearly are getting, obviously have had some devastating injuries, and yet around a little bit past the 1/3 mark of the season, they're still they're still in it, which makes me think there are things with the Seattle team that I think are vulnerable, and this Rangers team, in Boch we trust. I've seen enough of it when he was managing San Francisco that you know what they'll get on a run. Don't worry, they'll get on a run, and next thing the main question. Look, I think Seattle's going to be a wild card team, and I think they're going to be a mid 80 win, maybe
I
low 90
uh,
if everything clicks.
honestly, I still think that the Mariners are going to win the AL West. They weren't my pick to win it initially, but like they are such a good team. They are such a good pitching staff, and I think the hitters will come around. But like
The
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 Rangers
question
obviously don't need to win the AL West.
the question is the Astros. I mean, the Astros have been bad. Not in a slump. They've been a bad team the
I'm
first
sorry.
third
Can
of
you
the
say that
season.
again, but like a little bit slower?
Okay, this is your ASMR. So if they can continue to be a bad team, well then it's clear that you have talked with a genie. When you look at someone like me, clearly I know fashion. Clearly, I am someone who knows how to dress right. For example, today I am sporting the luxurious Seattle Pilots t-shirt. But do you know what? I like to sometimes get dressed and look nice and go out and you get that little confidence boost. But I don't trust my sense of fashion. That's why I use Stitch Fix. Do you know what Stitch Fix does? Stitch Fix sets you up with your own stylist. You get easily upgrade your wardrobe this year. You got a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that fit you and fit your style and personality. Here's how it works. Okay, I got my stylist. I'm not going to mention their name. I don't want you all bombarding this person. I'm not even going to tell you how they identify in terms of their gender. Okay, they give me my size. I don't lie. Give me my style. How could I lie? I give them my budget preference. Sadly, I don't lie there either. I order boxes. They come to the mail, and and I get what I want, how I want. No subscription required, which is great. They send 5 just for me pieces, outfit recommendations, and pro styling advice, which clearly is working. And I keep what works, and they send back the rest. And my stylist, he just almost revealed too much there, sends just right pieces, and the fit is the point. It's like they're Jedi, and they don't know how they do it, but they go, "You will wear this," and it turns out great. Stitch Fix makes it also easy because I don't like to shop. It's not my thing, and they save me time. They save me that effort, and I get outfits that make me look great that I wouldn't pick out myself. And if you don't like anything, you just send it back, and the shipping and everything, they take care of that. Style is what makes you feel as good as you look. It starts today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. You must redeem within 7 days of signing up. Stitch Fix. Let's look good. This is a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Day now available on the free Fire TV channel app. Hey, I was thinking about this today. A lot of absolutely beloved players have worn number 34 in baseball. We talked about that on Locked On A's, and the fact that the A's have retired 2 players who wore number 34, Raleigh Fingers and Dennis Eckersley. And I thought there's a part of that really kind of fascinated me. And so I was thinking about this, and there are a slew of beloved number 34 players, and one of the biggest one is with the Texas Rangers. Number 34 is
Nolan Ryan.
Lynn Nolan Ryan. Yep. And I was just thinking about that. Like for whatever reason, that number 34 is like not just for like star players, but like fan base defining players. Nolan Ryan, when he made his great, return to Texas, both with the Astros and with the Rangers, 34 both times.
One I liked a little bit better than the other one.
I know. Well, there you go. Of course, the Red Sox got number 34,
Poppy.
Big Papi. That's right. That was the first one I thought of, Big Papi, who, of course, this is our effing city, slaying the Yankees, all this different stuff. They got another one for Philadelphia fans. And of course, this one tugs at the heartstrings a little bit. Roy Halladay, Hall of Famer Roy Halladay. No hit there, the second postseason no hitter.
Also, I'm pretty sure Nolan Ryan is the only player to have his jersey retired with 3 teams. There's been guys who have it retired with literally everybody, but I think is that the record for people who aren't Mo Rivera? Because I feel like that is.
It might be.
And it's the same number every place.
Yeah. Well, no, it was 30.
Is it not?
Was 30. No, it was 30 in Anaheim or the California Angels. Yeah, it was 30. I'm doing some of this from memory.
He was 34 when he first came up with the Mets in 66, but then he was 30 from 68 to 71 with the Mets, and then 30 with the Angels, and 34 with the Astros, and 34 with the Rangers. So
another 34, Kirby Puckett, who, posthumously we found out not so great things about Kirby, but in his lifetime, leading the Twins to 2 World Series titles and being so huge in both of those.
Speaking of Kirby's, the Rangers have a pretty good Kirby this year in Kirby Yates, who is an absolute steal and has been quietly one of the best closers in baseball this year. Like basically back to 2019 Kirby Yates. And the Rangers, I don't know if you remember this last year, the Rangers didn't have the best bullpen.
Oh, no. That's why Josh Spores was closing out games.
Josh Spores and Jose Leclerc and Aroldis Chapman, who is no longer with us. I mean, he's
cost you a good
else.
pitcher, cost you a quality pitcher to Kansas City.
It's fine. It's fine. We won a ring, and Cole Reagan's got to go thrive somewhere, and I'm happy for him. And literally anything shy of winning a World Series, and I would become the Joker in that trade. But hey,
there you go.
They won a World Series, so I can just go be happy.
Wait a second. The Rangers won the World Series?
People forget this, but the Texas Rangers actually won the 2023 World Series.
Oh, I didn't forget that. By the way, rounding out some 34s, King Felix in Seattle. Beloved there. And I talked about in Locked On A's, there's 2 players at number 34 retired, Dave Stewart and Raleigh Fingers. It's amazing the 34 was still available when Dave Stewart arrived. And probably the most popular jersey you're going to see at Dodger Stadium is Fernando Valenzuela to this day. Mm-hmm. He looks like just a dude. He looks like a guy, someone who hangs out in the neighborhood. And with that screwball pitching all those great years. And you see go around Dodger Stadium, 34, 34, 34, 34, all over the place. That number is all over the map. So there you go. But I think arguably the biggest one is in Texas with Nolan Ryan, who is still the face of Texas baseball. But oddly, not the answer to today's trivia question. Today's trivia question is this, and don't you answer if you know, because you're Mr. Texas Rangers. But can you name the Texas Rangers all-time leader in career strikeouts? Not for their entire career, just as a member of the Rangers. And I'll tell you something, it ain't Nolan Ryan. It's somebody else. So that is your trivia question. Put it down here on YouTube or at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. That's Brice Paterik. He's at Brice Paterik on Twitter and Instagram. And are you locked on Texas Rangers, locked on New York Rangers, or locked on the Rangers not going to like it with Yogi Berra?
The last one. That clearly the last one.
No, what's the other? What is it? I don't remember. I never remember. Is it just Locked On Rangers?
It's just at Locked On Rangers.
I Locked On Rangers. Okay.
That's the thing. No, I do want to get on one last point about
Please.
my team. It's funny because it does feel dramatic to be a World Series champion, literally just 2 games below 500 and about 3 out of your AL West lead. But it's more because the way they've done it. Because we all knew there's gonna be a lot of starting pitching injuries. There's gonna be a lot of issues there, and there are gonna be some issues in the pen as well. But it's more that the offense hasn't been anywhere near what it's been. Guys like Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe, and Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford all having just really bad offensive seasons, which is why if this team was, the same place that they are, the offense was amazing and the pitching was kind of poo-poo, you'd be like, okay, I get it. You're waiting on these guys to come off the IL on your starting rotation, and like it makes sense. But because the guys who have stepped up in the starting rotation, guys like John Gray, like Lorenzen, like Dunning and Eovaldi, and the offense hasn't quite done it. I think that's why there's a lot of frustration here, and still a lot of upside in this team to figure some things out. Maybe they won't, maybe they will, but I think that's why this team and this fan base are so angsty, like 7 months removed from winning a World Series.
Well, look at I am guessing the Rangers are going to be there at the very end because all these things have gone wrong for the team and they're still there. So when things start going right, I think there's going to be a market correction. But hey, Brice Paterik, thanks so much for hopping on the show today and talking about the Texas Rangers, who very well may have the second longest playoff drought in all of Dallas' sports in a couple of weeks. He's Brice Paterik. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Rangers crossover. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Check out Locked On A's too, and you can call me Sully.